Welcome to College Smart Radio, helping you understand the true cost of college and tackle the runaway costs of financing a college education. College Smart Radio is hosted by Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz, founders of Westface College Planning. Now, your hosts for College Smart Radio, Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz.
Are you worried about college debt and possible financial ruin, and you haven't even started college yet? On today's College Smart Radio program, we'll be outlining valuable tips to controlling your finances, whether you're about to enter college, in the midst of your higher education, or already graduated. Hi, I'm Beatrice Schultz. I'm in the studio with my co-host, husband and partner, Mark Guthrie. Welcome to our weekly show, College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of a college education. Our show is about bringing up-to-date and practical advice to parents who are dealing with the cost of a college education for their kids. With some private schools costing well over $60,000 a year, a UC costing $35,000, and a California State University running $25,000, parents need more help than ever. We bring you that help by sharing ways to pay less, tapping into financial aid, and prioritizing your source of funds to make sure you get through the most expensive years of your life. Based on my own education and experience, and Mark's education and experience, we share our insights with you week in and week out. Mark and I are the owners of the San Carlos-based college financial planning business, Westface College Planning. We're also the owners of Westface Financial Advisory, a registered investment advisory firm. We host workshops and webinars on college financial planning and consult with parents on a daily basis. And in addition to our insights, we bring in experts in many areas of the college process, from counselors, financial professionals, financial aid officers, student coaches, parents, and even students. You'll learn firsthand the ins and outs of how to pay for college and survive financially. In addition to our show, you can find lots of powerful information at our website, collegesmartradio.com. We have many articles with up-to-date information on navigating the waters of paying for the runaway costs of college. We also have a monthly e-newsletter full of content about college planning, and we have a link to our free community parent workshops and webinars that we host to teach parents about how to pay for college and also how the financial aid system really works. On today's show, our guest on College Smart Radio is Janae Adams. She's a professional speaker who motivates audience all across the country to think about money in a different way. But when she was in college, she didn't live by her own advice and let money rule her life. She did graduate from the South Carolina State University with a Bachelor of Science in Marketing, and she graduated debt-free with about $10,000 in the bank, but a short time after graduation, she did find herself $48,000 in debt. Janae's with us today. She's going to share with us some of the principles she followed to get herself out of debt, and also some of the advice that she gives to students and parents when she's talking about trying to help them become more financially literate themselves. Janae's joining us via phone. Hi, Janae. Welcome to College Smart Radio.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. So why don't you start the show a little bit by sharing some of your personal story, which I just kind of touched on, that I guess brought you the expertise to be an expert in this area today.
Well, when I was in high school, I would say that I'm every parent's, every high school student's dream, because I was able to go to college on a 4-year tennis scholarship at South Carolina State University. So everything was paid for, from my tuition to my dorm room, my books, meal plan, anything that had to do with college, it was free. So only thing I had to worry about was spending money while I was there and making sure I did my best. I was able to have an internship my junior year at a pharmaceutical company for 8 months, who paid me an annual salary of $45,000, which means I was bringing home about $3,000 a month, pretty much straight profit, because they took care of everything. So that's how I was able to save the $10,000 for when I got out of college. But I am definitely a warning system for all students, because even though I did go to college for free, I still racked up $48,000 in debt after college. So just imagine students that already have student loan debt, that they could actually get into more debt after college. When I did graduate, a few years after graduation, I married my high school sweetheart. But to my surprise, he was $25,000 in debt for student loans that he didn't even know about. And because the entire time we thought he was on a basketball scholarship at Belmont Abbey College here in North Carolina. But what actually happened is that the basketball coach convinced him and his parents to go to that college for 1 year and pay for it out of pocket. And then after that, the basketball scholarship picked up the next 3 years. So that 1 year equaled $25,000 in student loan fees.
Wow, that's a big chunk for 1 year. And so he was thinking it was going to be more of a full ride, and then afterwards he realized that he had that debt to deal with, right?
Exactly. He didn't even know until near our marriage. So that just shows that, some parents may end up telling you to sign these papers, and it might be for $25,000 student loan bill for 1 year. But
I think that's a really great point. I see so many financial aid awards, and and parents will come in. They'll say, "Oh, look, Susie got a $20,000 scholarship, and it's only going to cost us $20,000." But they're missing the point that 20 of that $25,000 was not a grant, but actually a loan that they're committed to paying back. So it really is an error. People may be listening, going, "Wait, how can that happen?" But oftentimes, families get excited. They're signing so many forms that they do actually sign up for loans when they think they might be getting a little bit of the free money. So that's a true example.
Exactly. And I think even more in our case was that his parents wanted him to go to college so badly. We're both first-generation college graduates. So we're the first ones in our family to graduate from college. So it really was, this is his opportunity. We'll do it whatever we have to do. So that's how it really happened.
So let's talk a little bit about what the key points are that you're sharing with families to make sure they don't get into that situation, and maybe also how you guys managed to get yourself out of debt. Well, actually, and maybe go a little bit more into it. You talked about getting $25,000 in debt. How did you get to $48,000 in debt to start this story?
Well, this is more of my fault. The first one was his fault with the student loan, but I would say that we moved into a house not long after we got married, which was also one of those mistakes that we are obviously still paying for. But once we got into that house, we built our own house, his car from college started to break down on him. And instead of doing the smart thing, going to get it repaired and drive it for a few more years, maybe save up some money and buy a new car cash, we decided to take it down to the Chrysler dealership and bought a brand new $23,000 all white Chrysler 300.
And they were happy to lend you the money, right?
They had no problem signing it over to two young 20-year-olds, 23-year-olds. They had no problem signing it up to us.
Sure. Boy, isn't that the truth? I mean, there are so many financial institutions out there that are just geared to market to get you to buy and worry about paying for it later. But, of course, later always shows up, doesn't it?
It definitely does.
Yeah.
It definitely does.
Well, let's get into some advice here. Let's talk about this, because I think you've got a really important message, and I'm sure that the kids you talk to, whether they're in college or in high school or already have graduated, can learn a lot. And let's just go through a few of these about how important it is to decide your future. Just give us a minute or two on that topic.
Well, the first one, decide your future, like you said, is whether you're in debt or not, whether you're in high school or college, you have to understand what your future looks like. Because when students understand that future, they will take the steps needed to get where they want to go, where they have dreams and they want to achieve them. So I always tell students when I talk to them to think about those dreams, think about those goals, and take the time to write down your 6 months goals. Those are your short term. Your intermediate goals, which is maybe 1 to 2 years. So for those high school students, where do you want to be when you're about a sophomore in college? Do you want to be in an internship, or what major do you want that you think you're going to go into? And then 3 to 5 year goals, long term. So let's say you're a junior in college. What career are you looking into? And once you get into that career, 3 or 4 years down the road, what position in that company do you want to be at? I'm sure you don't still want to be at entry level. And once they start looking at those goals, they'll see how if they are in debt, student loan debt, credit card debt, car loan debt, they see how that debt affects their dreams, affects their future, affects those goals. So once they start seeing what they want to do, they're saying, okay, this $40,000 student loan is not going to help me get to New York to live at that internship I want at the magazine company. So that's one thing that I tell them about, decide your future, because once they map it out, then they start working towards getting out of the debt they're in. And that's exactly what we did when we started getting out of debt. We wrote down our short, our intermediate, and our long-term goals.
And part of that, when you're putting in those goals, did you have financial numbers on the page, like we're going to pay X amount of principal and X amount of interest every month to get ourselves out of debt?
And that was more when we got to our budget, we did that. These were basically goals and dreams and it's actually, I have something called a dream sheet that I give to students because that's what I had. And I put it up on our refrigerator So everyone in the household, me, my husband, even my 1-year-old, we can see what we're working for. Because once you see where you're going, then it's okay to sacrifice. And that's what college students see or high school students see. Say, I'm sacrificing for a college education. That's why I'm not going.
That's a great example, and I love that your 1-year-old is looking at that list on the fridge because they're going to keep looking at it every year, and when they're 5, 6, 7, and 8, they'll start to understand a little bit more. I think that having those those goals are going to be really powerful for you. So what was the next step, or what's the next step that you're telling your people who are listening to you to kind of motivate them? They've got their dreams, they've decided what their future is going to be, but how do they make it happen?
So they have their goals down. They've determined what their dreams are going to be. Now they have to understand, where is this money every month going? Because right now it's just leaving them. Everybody who doesn't have control of their money every month is leaving them. So I tell them, you have to know where it goes. So I tell them at the beginning of the month, because that's usually when bills come in and you have to pay some things. I say, take those first 2 weeks of the month and keep track of everything you spend your money on. I tell them, I say, even to the point that if you go in a gas station and buy a stick of gum, that needs to go down. You need to keep that receipt and keep that cost in mind. And a lot of times their apartment rent is due that month. High school students, they may even be paying their own cell phone bill just for responsibility, or even their car insurance, and the same thing for college students also. Their student loan bill might be the beginning of the semester, and they have to pay that. So it's so many things that in those first 2 weeks of each month that students can catch right off the bat, and making sure that they keep those receipts for the first 2 weeks, because we got to learn what you're spending your money on.
I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are recognizing that all these tips are good tips for all of us in just being very financially responsible. If you've just joined us, our guest on today's College Smart Radio program is Janae Adams. She's a true personal example as well as a motivational speaker for students in high school and college to understand or to help themselves be financially responsible in their future. We've been just discussing this on College Smart Radio. We'll be right back after a short break.
College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz continues in moments on AM 1220 KDOW. For more information on today's topic, visit collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. Contact our hosts at collegesmartradio.com or call 650-587-1559. Now back to College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of college. I'm Beatrice Schultz. I'm here with my co-host, Mark Guthrie. We all know that college is expensive and will most likely be some of the most costly years for a family. Understanding how to navigate the college costs is a smart thing to know. To help families be on this radio show, I host community workshops live and via webinar several times a month that explain the costs of the various colleges, how the financial aid system works, and things to consider to prepare yourself for this tremendous expense. To learn more and reserve your seat, go to my website at collegesmartradio.com. If you've just joined us, we've been talking with our guest, Janae Adams, about trying to make the right financial decisions during college and after college so that you're not in debt and so that you have a much more healthy financial future. You can find out more about Janae at DreamGirlSpeaker.com, and you can also follow her blog and read and follow some articles that she's written about this topic. Janae, just before we left the break, we were talking a little bit about the real key points that you're talking to your listeners to that we want to share with our listeners. We talked about deciding your future and having your dream page, if I use the right term, kind of knowing where all that money goes, and then what's the next step, I guess we should say, in your important guidelines to guide these kids?
It's time to get it on paper, because a lot of people try to keep their, let's say, budget in their head, and it never works that way. And I actually instead of calling a budget, because high school students, college students, even most adults do not like the word budget, so I call it a spending plan. And so after the 2 weeks, they're going to get them a piece of paper, and it doesn't matter what kind of paper it is, a notebook piece of paper, and they're going to write down what they spent. So, for example, if they spent over the 2 weeks $20 on eating out, on food, then that's what they're going to write down, and they go ahead and double it for the entire month, and they get $40 for food. And then they're going to repeat that for each expense that they have for those 2 weeks so they can get their spending plan complete.
Sounds good. That's a pretty good start, because once you can see that on paper, boy, some things are probably really going to stand out, like things that maybe you could do without, which I think leads us to the next point, which is cut it out. Let's talk about that a little bit. Once you have your spending plan, time to review it, right?
Exactly. And the reason that you have to cut it out, because we're trying to find money to pay off debt. And the best way to find that is within your spending plan. If you want to pay off debt or you want to save money, that's where you're going to find the money. So, for example, when we were trying to get out of debt, we spent, for me personally, $110 a month on a cell phone bill. We were spending $150 on a cable and internet bill. So I cut out $100 out of both of those bills combined, basically, and we're saving $100 a month that we use to pay it against debt. So when I tell college students, when I tell high school students, look at that spending plan, what can be cut back? And usually it is the cable bill. It usually is the cell phone bill. And the biggest one is eating out. We were spending $200 a month, my husband and I, 2 people, and we started cooking at home, and that saved us at least $150 a month because we basically stopped eating out.
Yeah, and you probably got a little bit healthier, too, because you're not eating such restaurant food and more healthy food at home, right?
Yep, and I learned how to cook, which was another plus for us.
That's probably good for you and your husband and your 1-year-old as well. Well, we've got another one that I want to talk about, which is never pay full price for anything. Talk about that a little bit.
This is my motto. I don't like to pay full price for absolutely anything, and I always encourage anybody to think about this. So whether you're a high school student or a college student, there's discounts everywhere. At the movie theater, at the grocery stores, they always have student discounts. And then with coupons, a lot of students live off campus when they get to college, and they have to cook for themselves and instead of eating out. So I tell them that coupons can easily take a $100 grocery bill down to $40 without any kind of work. And so if it took you an hour to cut out some grocery coupons, isn't that worth the $60 you saved? That's basically better than a job. You just made $60 an hour because you took the time to cut out coupons. So never pay full price for anything. Go around saying that to yourself wherever you go.
I like that. And yeah, that's a great analogy that we use all the time, or an analysis we use all the time, especially when we talk to parents about kids looking for scholarship opportunities. It might take them 10, 15 hours, but if they can find $2,000-$3,000, that's a pretty good part-time job right there. And I think it's the same.
That's more than worth it.
What you're talking about as well. So let's move on to sell. What are we saying with this one?
Well, this one is after you've already cut everything you can out of your spending plan, it's time to sell some things because we got to find even more money to pay off debt. So when we were getting out of debt, we had 5 TVs in the house with 2 people in it. So I went and I sold 3 of those TVs and took the money and started paying off debt. We sold our wedding gifts that weren't being used. We found a microwave in the closet.
Now, be careful. You're on the radio. Some of those people that gave you the gifts might be a little upset to hear this.
I'll make sure that they don't hear it. Okay. That was one. We were in desperate times, so other people's feelings at the time were important. But we sold clothes. I sold books at book sale stores, which students can also do. I mean, they have top-notch books in college that they spent their money on. And they can take it to places like a place here named Edward McKay, who would gladly buy their books from them. So that's a way that they can make money. And high school students, they can sell clothes that they got from maybe Christmas or a holiday or their birthday on eBay. And I found a lot of high school students do that. They actually go to yard sales, buy things cheaply, and then resell them on eBay for a massive profit. So it's so many things that students are creative and they can do to make money, to save for college, or if they're in college with student loan debt, that they can start saving so they can pay off those student loans quickly. Sure.
And then, like I said, I don't think we're going to have time for all these, but I want to talk a little bit about credit cards because I know that's an important topic as well. What was your experience with credit cards, and what advice would you give others? Well,
what's so funny about me and credit cards is that when I was smaller, even when I was in elementary school, my mother made it a point that when a credit card offer would come in the mail, she would rip it in my face and throw it in the trash can. But where students fall in a trap is at department stores, and that's where I fell into the trap. When I was in college on that internship, living on my own, I was in a Gap store, and I came up to pay for my clothes, and the young lady said, would you like to sign up for a Gap credit card, and you can save 30% today. I heard nothing about credit cards. I just heard save 30%, and I signed up and got approved. But like so many adults, like so many students, college students, I forgot to pay the bill the entire month. And make a long story short, I ended up having to pay for those clothes twice because I didn't pay the bill correctly and had to pay fees. So I always tell students to stay away from credit cards. And they've always been told that they need one to rent a car, to rent a hotel room, and this is the biggest thing. This is where I get the most questions from students once I'm done is credit cards and about credit scores. And I tell them, you don't need a credit card for anything. It's been at least over 12 years I haven't had a credit card at all, and life is still going on. And I don't worry about a credit score because I don't borrow money. So if students say if they want to borrow money, if the parents they want to borrow money, then they have to have a credit score. But I don't. I pay cash for a car. I pay cash for anything that I need. And you find it funny when you don't use credit cards. It's a lot of stuff you really don't. What you thought you needed, you don't.
Boy, I think that's true. So when should students get started? Should they kind of learn these lessons and then get started when they get their first job, or should they get started right away in college?
They can start these tips while they're in college. The goal sets in to staying away from credit cards, starting a spending plan. This is stuff that they can practice while they're in college, and when they get out, it's pretty much just easier for them once that paycheck starts coming in. So they're learning to live on their own while they're in college. And once they get out, I tell them that your student loan is not a pet. You don't need to keep it for 10 or 20 years. You need to pay it off as fast as you can because it's time to make this money that you worked so hard to graduate to earn work for you and your future generation. So I tell them, I said, I understand you have to have student loans, but you don't have to keep them. I said, I paid off $48,000 in 2.5 years. It's no reason that you can't do the same thing with a career and income coming in.
Sure. Well, hey, we just got about a minute left. Any final key words of advice that we haven't already covered?
I would tell people to, like you said, start now. Don't wait. College students, high school students, whatever kind of hobby you have or skill, start making money off of it. If you play tennis in college or you play basketball in high school, start training a younger kid in elementary or middle school. You'll be surprised how many parents will pay you $25 or $50 an hour to train that student or that child in basketball, in piano, in anything that you have a talent in. So I would tell them to start right now, start making that money for themselves so they can start saving for their future and paying off debt.
Janae, thank you so much for your advice and for joining us today. And I hope you resonated with a couple of students and parents that are listening in on our show. Thanks for joining us on College Smart Radio.
Thank you for having me once again.
Well, that wraps up another weekly show of College Smart Radio. We hope you picked up some new information today that helps you figure out ways to manage the runaway costs of college. You can hear us each week here on KDOW 1220 AM Saturdays at 3 p.m. We promise to bring you up-to-date information from the front lines of helping parents deal with the most expensive years of their lives. For a link to a podcast of this show and our prior weekly shows, go to our website, collegesmartradio.com. And in addition to the podcast, you'll also find a schedule of our upcoming shows. Make sure you check out our glossary and links of which are related to the shows that we're watching, and there'll be a link there to the DreamGirlSpeaker.com website of Janae Adams. And also plan on joining us in one of our upcoming Westface College Planning workshops and webinars. You can do so and register at our show's website, collegesmartradio.com. This is Beatrice Schultz.
And this is Mark Guthrie.
Thanks for tuning into College Smart Radio. We look forward to sharing more information with you next week.
You've been listening to College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz. If you have questions on today's topic, log on to collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. That's 650-587-1559. And join us next week at this time for another edition of College Smart Radio on AM 1220 KDOW.
Information presented during today's show is not to be construed as advice meeting the particular needs of any investor. All mention of performance is based on historical experience. It should not be assumed that past performance is any indication of future results. Tax and or legal advice is not offered by Mark Guthrie or Beatrice Schultz. Please consult your tax professional for additional guidance regarding tax-related matters. Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz are owners and investor advisor representatives of Westface Financial Advisory. College planning services offered through Westface College Planning. Insurance services services offered through Westface Financial and Insurance Services. License number OF 35251. Financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Westface Financial Advisory.